I took a mature doe this morning, man, I was excited for the hunt, for the herd management purposes, balancing that adult sex ratio, making sure there's plenty of groceries for the herd, and for my freezer. Thinking about that freezer, I want to walk through the steps of how I eviscerate or gut a deer. First thing I like to do is position a deer on their back. You may think that's odd. It's kind of like out in the field, but I'm doing something different here. I find the end of the sternum. You can tell by just pressing. You can see I can push in there. And I'm right in the center of the sternum. I take my knife. Now, something I should mention, I like a really sharp knife. I'm using a Cabela's Alaskan Guide. It's S30V steel. That stuff stays wicked sharp. We've already processed a couple deer with this knife since it's been sharpened, but I'm just cutting to the sternum. I don't have to worry about getting into the cavity because that big bone's there. And I take the skin past the last rib. I can feel the last rib right here. And that rib boogers up a lot of people because when I go to open up the thoracic cavity, if that rib isn't cut, everything will hang up there and it makes it tougher to get the lungs and everything up in the thoracic cavity out. The reason I do this is I'm going to use loppers or shears to cut through the rib cage through the sternum. And that just opens up that chest cavity very easy. It doesn't dull your knife, and it's much safer. If you're hacking really hard on a big mature deer, trying to cut through all those ribs or the sternum, there's a chance that baby could slip. By using loppers, no fingers in the way, it's much cleaner and safer. You can tell these loppers have been used a little bit, but they're still pretty sharp. We're just splitting through bone. It's almost like a splitting maul when you're splitting firewood. It doesn't need to be razor sharp. This is the main cutting side, but this dull point here makes it less likely, much less likely, that I would enter the rumen cavity and spill that nasty juice on the meat. So having this dull point, keeping the sharp up, is a real safe way to open up the thoracic cavity, especially when I get close to the rumen. You can start from the neck side or the tummy side of the sternum. I like to start at the neck side just to make sure I get through this big front part of the sternum and that last rib. I can always pick up on the other side. And I like to go through the sternum, not the ribs on either side. The sternum seems to break, almost splitting white oak. Or if you go through the ribs, it can be kind of splintery when you reach in there to pull it apart. I just simply get below, take your finger, that last rib, stick the dull end in, and you can even put this on the floor or the ground right here, and it just cuts through there. Another big advantage of this system is, you think about gravity, it's pulling the tummy and the lungs and everything down. This is so much cleaner than if I had it hung up already and all that weight is falling down in the chest cavity, stuff would want to spew out. But by laying it down, keeping the deer primarily on their back, all that weight is going towards the spine and not pushing towards the sternum. That's it. That's the simplest way I found to go through there and keep it really clean. Once I've cut through the last rib with the loppers, I just take my knife. Now there's no bone to dull my knife or anything, and I can free up some tissue so this will spread open real easily. And when I get everything opened up, everything will just fall out. I don't want a narrow window right here because stuff will hang up in there. So as you can see, that really opened that up a lot, makes it cleaning out much easier. Next thing I do is make a place for the gamble. A lot of people call it the knees, but it's not really. But there's a place right here where it's just hide. You don't want to cut this tendon here, or you won't have anything to hang the deer up with. And another little point a lot of people don't talk about, these are called the tarsal glands. And tarsal glands are special cells underneath there. You can see the dark stain. They urinate on there, called rub urination, stuff like that. Well, there's a lot of bacteria in there you don't want to be putting on your knife that you're going to process meat to feed your family. Now, some hunters save those and hang them in trees. If you do, wear gloves because there's some bad nasty. You can see again, big old tendon bone over here. I just stick in here. Razor sharp knife makes it easy. I've got a gamble, pretty good size gamble, so I'm going to step on one leg, put it through there, force this over, and now I'm ready to hoist up the deer. Now I've got it at a great height for working on it. I like to remove the hide so I can see exactly what I'm doing when I go to remove the lining around the rumen or intestines and whatnot. And also keeps the hide much cleaner if you're like me and like to, have some hide stand to use for your family or give away as a gift. So ruminescent pressure, it's like a top balloon, right?
You can hear it like a big watermelon. You don't want that watermelon squishing out all over, and you can see that's the rumen right there. And I'm just going to go put my finger in here and ease up some interior there. And that's just taking pressure off up here. I can feel the difference. So I'm just freeing that up where it can expand down into the thoracic cavity, chest cavity, and that takes some pressure off. And then you can see I'm just very carefully, I can almost do it with my fingers, but I've turned the knife this way, not in towards the inside, barely stick it between my fingers, and I'm freeing up as I go. Higher up you go, the easier it is because there's less pressure. See that? That's the tip of the rumen.
On the back end, I just simply pull the tail out of the way, and I'm going to make a slice on the tail side, and there'd be a canal, the birth canal in here, which is also where the digestive tract comes out. And I'm sticking my knife down. There's a big hole. You think a fawn sliding through there. So there's a big hole, but I'm not rubbing the hip bones. I want to keep my knife super sharp, so I'm just not wanting to be whacking on the bone. And I just kind of hold it out of the way, cut around, and free it up. You got to free it up. So I'm cutting all the way. I mean, I can see, if you look, you can see light through there, right? I'm just freeing it up because if you got tissue still holding it, it's going to be really tough to get it free out of there. And then when you do it right, it just falls through. Now I'm going to just pull it out, and you can see everything comes with it. I'm just freeing up some fat on the back side. Just barely freeing up some fat. This dough is in good shape. These are the inner loins, so I don't want to be putting my knife in there. Some people call those the tenderloins. Look at this. It's just coming out. This is the diaphragm you hear a lot of hunters talk about. Once I cut this diaphragm, she's going to fall quickly. I'm just going through. There's nothing nasty here at all because it was a clean shot and a clean job eviscerating or gutting a deer. So you can tell why I cut that bottom rib, because if you miss that bottom rib, the very front rib actually, everything will hang up and your hands are down there digging around. So all I got to do now, I'm just freeing up the diaphragm and it just falls out. Look how clean that is. That looks like it's hanging in a meat shop or something. Look how clean that is. You may tag a deer way back in the wilderness. You just can't get it out. You quarter the deer. I understand that. But for those of us that, hunt whitetails as most of us do, fairly close to home or buy a barn or skin and shed, if you can hang it, you end up with a really clean process and provide high quality venison to your family. Just to summarize quickly, I laid the deer down. I freed up all the hide along the sternum. I used loppers to cut through the ribs in the sternum, making sure I got the very bottom rib so everything inside would fall out easily. I made a big V with my fingers and pushed the rumen back and just took the tip of my knife and slid up through there. I freed up where the birth canal and digestive tract comes out the back end, pulled it through, and you end up with an extremely clean carcass. Gutting or eviscerating a deer is step one in processing venison. The next step in processing venison, of course, is taking the hide off. In the next video, I'll show you my techniques to skin a deer.